What if the one thing that you're meant to do keeps showing up in your life ever since you're a little kid? And it's been going on for years. Well, for me, I had that realization 20 years later after I met Don Bluth. Welcome to Art with Chris. This is the channel for all you artists and creatives and those trying to break in. Like I said, I've spent the last 20 years thinking about that meeting I had with Don Bluth. You know, the most influential 2D animation director. But before we get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit more about my background. And I want to start with when I was a kid, show you the moments that led me to that point. And so when I was young enough to hold a pencil, my mom being a fine art artist and interior designing, she would prompt me to draw. She would draw faces, cars, and I'd copy them. And I knew that practice was what I needed. And I always got told, good job. And I guess what I meant to say was, that's where the inspiration too is the positive affirmation that I received. And then at the same time, I watched 2D animation like Walt Disney. He knew that production was the best quality out there at that time. And so, yeah, you always waited for a new Walt Disney. Or when I was a kid also, growing up in the 70s and 80s, it was Saturday morning cartoons. So these things inspired me. And I couldn't put it to words, but I definitely knew what it meant. Fast forward to my senior year, second semester, and there was this kid that came in. He had students surrounding his desk, and that got me curious, so I had to go over there and investigate. And the thing about this kid was the background on him is I was playing ball with him. I love playing basketball. And so there I was on the courts playing basketball. So I had this competitive edge with him. And so I went over there, pencil rendering of R&B artists and rap artists. There must have been 2 or 3 of these framed. And I was amazed, and my mouth dropped. I was like, that is so awesome. And up to that point, I was doing contour drawings and getting the shapes, getting the structure, but I hadn't really shaded. So that was, for me, a step. And so I made a decision that moment that, I'm going to do that too. And I'm going to show this guy that I'm just as good, if not better, right? We're all competitive and have that mindset, and that's what pushes us. And so knowing, I love basketball, and knowing the most influential basketball player, even yet today, was Michael Jordan. I had such time spent watching Jordan, his moves. He was a pretty intense personality, inspiring too, and he was in the air a lot. And so I was like, okay, let's get a dramatic picture from his dunk contest. So this is it right here. I sat down and I put everything on hold until I got that drawing done. And there was another drawing as well with that. And that year, I had completed my first fully rendered shading drawing, full figure drawing. And so I had, that year completed a finished rendering drawing that I felt pretty proud of. And I got to say, it didn't tell me that I was an artist, but it did say I already was one. And so from that confidence, investigated 2 of the 2D animation places that were quite prevalent. One was starting, and the other one, like I said, I mentioned already, is Walt Disney. I got to know somebody that works behind the scenes of Walt Disney, and so at lunchtime when everybody was gone, I had an intimate look inside the studio of where all the artists were drawing. I saw the background artists and their renderings on the wall, as well as the character drawings and everything that their drawings as well. And I was quite inspired. And then another place I went to was DreamWorks. And same thing. I saw the background artists' renderings. I saw the character artists and all their renderings as well. And again, amazed. I was amazed. and I knew that's where I wanted to go in my career. I jump a couple years later, as I'm going to school. School is a big part of the future, is getting educated. So my mom, coming home from work one day, she mentioned, because I was going to community colleges at the time, and I was studying about art, and I really felt like I was getting the inspirational, like I took art history, and I was realizing where I fit in this world, and which was like, as an artist, I was finding out, like a Michelangelo or a Da Vinci, and um, these artists are the ones that really inspired me. And so my mom told me about the Art Institute of Phoenix, and so I went to go check it out and applied, and I got in. And I learned all about, let's see, computer animation, because that was the degree, 3D animation, because this is in early 2000s, late 90s, just right in that time period that 3D animation was going to take over the 2D animation stuff. So anyway, 3D animation. I was learning video as well, video storytelling. I was learning graphic design. I was learning programs such as Creative Suite stuff, Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, and After Effects. I was getting the gamut of everything that I would need for my future, and really excited. I was diving into what I was meant to do, and it was exciting. And so nearing the end of the Art Institute of Phoenix, there was an instructor that said that, graduation is nearing, and we're going to get a keynote speaker. And she was all excited to let us all know who this keynote speaker was. And so she mentioned it was Don Bluth. And at the time, I was like, oh, Don Bluth. And then she began to spout off all of that he was from Disney and all the movies that he's directed, and I was just had no idea. Which Bible, American Tail, there was All Dogs Go to Heaven, Anastasia, Land Before Time. So there was a lot there, and I just named a little bit of these. Don Bluth is prolific. And so I was excited about going to graduation and seeing him. When people hear that I met Don Bluth, they think of one big moment, like stage or crowd, or like one big moment. But that's not how it happened. I had like 3 opportunities. The first one, I heard his name. The second one, I was close enough that I was watching him. 3 was that I was having an opportunity to talk. And do I take it or not? And I got to say, I almost didn't. But guess what? Check out this next video to see the real story.